Hello, welcome to another episode of Soul Sessions. I am Debra Maldonado.
I'm Dr. Rob.
And we are the founders of Creative Mind and Creative Mind University. This is a Jungian coaching podcast. We train coaches in Jungian coaching, Jungian psychology. And today we're going to talk about plant medicine and individuation. We get this question a lot from our students, from clients. It's very popular right now. It's like in the mainstream. Everyone's trying it. And so we're going to talk about how that impacts the brain and also how it ties into individuation and how to really, and also warnings about it as well and how we see it. Before we begin, I do want to ask you a favor. If you could subscribe to our channel, if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on one of the podcast services, make sure you hit subscribe so that we can get more people listening to this content and changing lives.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this plant medicine.
Juicy topic, absolutely.
And I've never done plant medicine myself. And so I don't know firsthand what that's like, but I've had mystical experiences that came naturally to me. So I guess I never was called to need it. But there are some people that feel they get stuck and they need it.
Yeah, not only that, for me, it was very close to my culture. And relatives that I had in Mexico introduced me to plants early on in my teen years. And so it was part of my growing up experience. And I saw it as totally natural, part of my family, part of the culture as well. So it was an important part of my growing up experience. But as I went to university, studied psychology, studied the brain, the mind, then my perspectives, of course, changed, and I learned to see it in a different context.
And what would you say that changed?
That, well, first of all, I saw that in many situations, the way people were using psychedelics or are still using psychedelics, they're taking them out of the cultural context. Now, cultural context is important in plant medicine because it provides the kind of the container for those experiences.
So like the rituals and the experience of having that journey.
Yes, exactly. It provides the container that provides the kind of the safety and the ground rules for what those experiences mean and what those experiences are.
And so they're going mainstream now, and then there's people that aren't keeping it in that context or not really qualified to administer this experience. So we always say, be careful, do your research.
Because there are people that are attempting, let's say, or holding them in that traditional context and trying to replicate them for other people or groups, group experiences of psychedelics. And there are viable ways of doing it, right? And they're good guides for people to experience those plants. But definitely do your research if you're interested and you've never done plant medicine. Do your research, right? Inquire into people that have undergone those experiences with those leaders and to see what their experiences were. If those are really good ways of experiencing plants through those guides.
And I think you shouldn't just check with your doctor or therapist if you're under treatment before you do anything like that as well.
Yeah, definitely do your homework, right?
So what is the reason why people are drawn to it? Why do you think it's becoming so popular? Like, what does it do that gives us such a profound experience for people?
Well, I think it's always been part of the human experience. Mm-hmm. Almost every culture in the world has some mind-altering substance that they use on a regular basis.
So we have coffee, we have beer and wine, alcohol. And then,
those are mind-altering substances.
Cigarettes, the pipe, the peace pipe.
And also in Western cultures, we have psychiatric medicines as well. Those are powerful
plant medicine come from plants.
Medications, that change the structure and function of the brain and the mind.
I mean, aspirin, is a plant. It's not anything manufactured. Well, it's manufactured into a pill, but
many psychiatric drugs either come from plants or mimic what plants do.
So it's a part of our culture, whether we're not going on an ayahuasca retreat or we're just going to the CVS down the street. We're participating in it in some way.
That's right. There's a couple of arguments I've heard. From the layman's perspective, we can say plants are more natural. They're part of the natural world, and we've grown up as a species evolved with these plants, and they're part of our biology. The reason the plant molecules impact our brain is because we have the receptor sites for them. In other words, we're related.
We're built
somehow.
to it.
They've evolved along with us, and they're part of us, and we're part of them. The other argument is from the psychiatric community that says, yes, but those plants contain a lot of other molecules that are not really useful for our brain.
So with the synthetic medicine, they could take that out, those things out.
Yes, that's the argument, that they can isolate the
active ingredient.
The active ingredient in the plant or in the medication, and therefore they're using it in a more controlled, more manageable way, and having more of a targeted effect, let's say. But regardless of those arguments, if we look at history, we do see that human beings have this predisposition to experiment with plants, to use them in a psychoactive way, as well as a spiritual component to them, that they've enlightened us somehow. They've been part of our way of doing culture, of communicating with the gods, of understanding our mind and our dreams.
And so what really happens? What is the brain doing when we undergo this experience?
Yeah, the short answer is we don't really know. There's some good guesses, and some researchers are starting to look at it in a serious way. But because for so long it was considered taboo to study these plants and their effect, we don't really know that much about them. We are starting to see that what they do is they kind of scramble the natural patterns of the brain function, so that from the inside, when our brain is lit up by psilocybin, which are mushrooms, or mescaline, which are the peyote plants, or other plants like ayahuasca, that we can start to see connections that were not there before. And so we might...
So we're almost looking at the unconscious?
Oh, yeah.
We're
almost like pulling back the curtains and observing our mind doing its work, where most of the time we're focused on external circumstances, right? We're focused on objects in our environment and experiencing that very clearly. When the psychedelics take effect, we're able to observe the function of our brain in a kind of in a subjective way, that we're seeing memories come to life almost as it like in a waking dream, and new experiences. Our imagination is lit up, and therefore now we're reimagining a whole new reality.
So you had mentioned before we started the show about the default mode network that gets disrupted in the brain that allows this new experience to happen. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we can think about the default mode network as establishing our sense of self, right? It's almost like...
the ego?
Yeah, it's almost like what we call the ego. It's our sense of self, and of course, by extension, it's our sense of the world. Like, what do we know for sure about the world, or what
our assumptions about everything?
What are our assumptions of reality? That's kind of all built into that default mode network. So it's operating where we're not necessarily focused on anything in particular. We're not necessarily solving a problem or figuring out an equation. We're simply being, and the default mode network kicks in.
Which
right?
keeps everything consistent. Is that why we have it? So we have a consistent experience in life, and it's not waking up every day going, I have to reconstruct the reality of my life every day and remembering everything. It's like kind of like a fixed way of being or seeing the world.
Pretty much the habitual thought patterns of our mind are there, right? And they're operating, doing their job. These plants, what they do is they alter that. They
kind of
decrease,
blow out the doors.
They decrease that function, those parts of the brain, and therefore we start to experience our internal world in a very different way, which we've never experienced. So in a sense, because reality now, we understand that we're creating reality internally. It's a model that we create in our mind, and that's what we're experiencing. Although it appears to be that we're experiencing an external reality that's already set out there. That is an illusion that the brain creates. It's really an internal processing experience. So color, for example, it's not out there in the world. It's a mental experience. Music, an internal experience. It's so only...
you start to see that, like almost through the illusion of separation, and you start to feel connected to everything. Like, I think I've heard people say you feel this like incredible connectivity to everything. Like you're one with everything, and it's almost like the individual self like melts away, and there's just the witness to feeling this deep connection.
That's right.
Like a spiritual experience, basically.
Very much what people would call a spiritual experience. And one of the elements, of course, is hypothetically, right, in people that are studying this, is the idea that the ego is dissolved or deactivated temporarily by the plant medicine, and therefore we experience reality in a completely different way, which is an egoless sense, right? And
there is like the caveat, because some people have bad trips, where it's like you can't really control it. And some people have not happy experiences. Some people have great experiences. Some people don't have happy experiences. So it's not for everyone. But what I think is that when we do individuation, Jung's individuation, it's sort of like this is kind of an accelerated experience of what individuation could be for people. Like it's almost like planting the seed in a way of who they like, almost like kickstarting that process. And I think that even if you don't do plant medicine like me, you can have those experiences through individuation, through shadow work, through active imagination, through dream work, lucid dreaming, that there's these states that you can get to without the plant medicine that might not feel as intense, but definitely profound. And so we're capable of having those experiences as well outside of it. So people that are a little hesitant, take it from me, you can have wacky, crazy, life-changing experiences outside of that as well.
Well, if we just look at dreams, lucid dreaming, for example, it's a powerful hallucination that we have during the nighttime, where we're experiencing our dream world almost as a separate reality on its own. That is a unique state of mind that we have naturally. All of us have this ability. Natural dreams themselves, just typical dreams, they are controlled hallucinations that we're having. And I say controlled loosely because we're not really controlling them, but we're not overwhelmed by them. In other words, they're part of our natural brain function.
We don't wake up, go, oh my God, I had a dream. That was the weirdest experience. We're like, oh, I had a dream. It was a strange dream. It's like all part of life. Like we all accept that we dream. Yeah,
that's right. But if we look at what were we experiencing during that REM period, there were incredible hallucinations, complete with sense of touch, sense of taste, sense of feeling,
emotions coming up,
characters. We're building a whole world in our mind and experiencing those powerful dreams. So we already have the mechanisms for hallucinations in a powerful way. These plants simply activate it during our waking state. And they do add, like you were saying, kind of a spiritual component. And it also depends on the plants. We know mushrooms and mescaline have powerful spiritual elements to them, or the experience of the plant gives us those spiritual experiences.
Wouldn't you say, too, if the context is there as well? Like you need the context of a spiritual ritual in that can...
It helps. Yeah. It helps, but the properties themselves of the plant appears to trigger areas of the brain and the mind that correspond to what we typically call spirituality, or what Jung would call numinous experiences.
And I know that people talk about ayahuasca, and what I hear about it, it doesn't sound fun. Like there's a lot of sickness that happens and all that. Is that a less spiritual experience, or like it's not as like the plant doesn't really offer that? Or I know like everyone, I've always heard it's just very spiritual no matter what plant you take.
Yeah, I think that has to do more with the biology of our stomach. It's not, these are not food plants essentially. They're not meant to be digested kind of in a natural way. And so when we ingest them, our body rejects them, and but by that time it's absorbed the psychoactive elements that have gone to the brain, and these psychoactive elements can enter the brain blood barrier, and therefore they activate the brain in a powerful way. So there's a lot of different plants that can do this, but they each have their own particular kind of neurochemistry that or impact.
Like what about marijuana? That seems to be kind of like, is that a light? It's not really hallucinogenic, or can it be?
It can be it can be.
Depends where you get it from.
mild,
yeah.
Hallucinogenic. Yeah. So the interesting part is that we have the receptor sites, and that's why these plants activate the brain in such a powerful way, which means there's a natural connection already, right? And it probably means that if you think of Neanderthals and early humans, Homo sapiens, they were probably already experimenting with these plants.
I would guess they were, yes.
Yeah, and having powerful spiritual experiences through these plants. So it's a natural part of our human nature. So it's no accident, and no wonder that people are starting to see that there's a connection between mental health and these plants, that they can help us deal with depression, anxiety.
I just saw a documentary where, or it was 60 Minutes. They did one with soldiers who have PTSD, and they've been trying for years to, from Afghanistan, like that's how long ago they were in service, and they just still cannot. They can't sleep, and they've tried all their therapies and drugs, and they, I think they went to the mushroom, psilocybin, and psilocybin. I know I always pronounce it wrong. I'm not an expert, but I'd say they had 10 people, and 9 of them had a very profound experience, and one of them said it didn't affect him at all. So it's like, okay. But a lot of them said it really shifted them, got kind of kick-started. And I think sometimes when nothing else works, it could be a good, as long as it's a controlled experience, the people you trust, you're not just throwing your mind in some place that you're not going to be taken care of. It could be a great breakthrough for people that have this kind of experience.
Yeah, there's a principle that's known of in psychopharmacology. It's the principle of thirds. So that 1/3 of the population that takes the active ingredient, 1/3 will have an amazing experience, right? That will improve their mental state. It will reduce their anxiety, their PTSD, whatever they're aiming for. Another 1/3 will have mild improvement, right? They'll get some improvement, but not the full impact that they were hoping. And then the last 1/3 will have no effect, right? No improvement, perhaps maybe a bad experience, like you were saying,
or neutral, or just Now you always say, because you've been doing studying psychology for so many years and clinical research, and what you just said is really powerful, because when you talk about our work and what we do with the coaches and we train them, you said that the results we get are unprecedented.
Yes.
In the ordinary, like for us to get, it was like 90% of people have like that high like life-changing experience. And so you were like, we have something special here. Like individuation is so powerful. And so like you said, those experiences, we want to find ways to help, like in mental health, that we don't want to settle for just 30% or maybe 60%. We want to help as most people as possible in the most profound way. And I found individuation has been the key. And so with the plant medicine experience, it kind of like opens up that possibility to, I'm not just the ego anymore. And it's not the end. I mean, that experience can be life-changing, but you need support after. You can't just go, like it's a one-time deal. Like we have to go into, that's why individuation, the process is this unraveling or undoing of the ego in a very methodical way, so that someone can truly have lasting effects from those things.
Yeah, individuation, we can say, begins with a deconstructing of the ego, right? We're deconstructing it in a methodical way, meaning we're being careful, and we're kind of addressing the individual and what their particular needs are, so that it's not a shotgun effect, right, of just getting blowing away the ego through a substance. What that does, it gives the individual self-control, right? That they're able then to modify their own evolution and direct it. So it's self-directed neural evolution or neuroplasticity. The brain, we know, is...
You're talking about individuation.
Individuation. Yeah. The brain, we know, is... It's always reading our experiences and then trying to adapt to them. In other words, if it doesn't have what it needs to adapt, it starts to create those neural connections and to say, I'm ready for it next time. Next time it shows up. So as we start to open up new avenues, new visions for ourselves, just as in plant medicine,
see ourselves outside of our ego and tap into what we call the creative mind and that mind of possibility.
yes, the brain restructures itself in order to adapt to this new potential that's arising. The difference is that in individuation, it's much more measured and controlled because the individual is doing it in their own pace, in their own way, and therefore the adaptation lasts a lot longer.
Well, and also I want to say that there's this kind of resistance has a bad rap, that we just want to blast through the resistance, but the process of facing the resistance in that individuation process is what gives us the fuel for that lasting change. So if we keep just blasting the resistance out, having these experiences, but we never really build that muscle to, like, the resistance has energy to it that we need. And so we lose that part of the process. So, so we're definitely saying, like, you have to follow your own path, do your own path, make your own choices, but make sure you're making that a lifelong journey of individuation. What the elements of what happened on that plant experience is just the beginning of a longer process. And if you're, again, not into plant medicine, know that individuation and the Jungian coaching that we do provides that extraordinary imaginative dream work, active imagination, non-ego experience that you can get in just like you said, a slower pace. I don't feel like it's slow. It's pretty quick, a lot quicker than just cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's kind of at your own pace, and you get to direct how fast or slow it goes.
Well, we can't really compare it to cognitive behavioral models because those do not go into the unconscious mind. Jung's work specifically addresses the unconscious mind and incorporates not only the personal unconscious, shadow work, but the collective unconscious. Now, if we look at plant medicine from that perspective, we can say that the dissolution of the ego, right, the transcendence of the ego that occurs through the plant medicine opens up the collective unconscious. And so that people are, what they're experiencing, these powerful numinous images that arise in their hallucinations, they're coming from the collective unconscious.
And we want to understand them. We want to work with the symbols after. We want to integrate them in a powerful way so we can use them in our life.
Yes.
Instead of just wow, that was cool.
The question is that opening of the unconscious available through the individuation process? And the answer is yes. We can go that deep. We can experience that depth of understanding and experiencing the collective unconscious through dream work, through active imagination.
Well, also through the symbolic life. Like we teach our clients that you're looking at everything in the world as symbolic versus this separate event that happens. It's like, what is this event symbolizing to us? It's like our whole unconscious mind is out in the world reflecting back to us all the time, but we just don't know how to look, know how to see it, know how to read it.
Yeah. One of the reasons I was very interested in Eastern philosophy is because the yoga systems and the meditation systems were particularly designed to do the same thing that these plant medicines were doing. They actually had what they called soma in ancient traditions, but it was lost in history. There are some ideas of what they were talking about, but nobody knows for sure what the soma was. But it was described as a powerful elixir, an elixir of immortality that would essentially do what some of these plant medicines do. But the yoga systems and the meditation system is essentially a natural psycho-spiritual discipline of waking up the mind brain in the same fashion that the plant medicines do.
Fascinating. Well, this has been very informative for me, very intriguing. But I think the bottom line is that we have this deeper self that's waiting to be discovered, whether you do it through the plant medicine or do it through the individuation, dream work, that there's more to us than our surface default mode network. And we can disrupt it in many ways and get out of our limited life or limited patterns that keep us repeating the same old, and be able to break free and really live truly free and create the things we want in life. So, and be who we want to be in life.
Yes, we'll have to do more on this topic. It's a big, broad topic, and we barely kind of scratched the surface.
Don't forget to post comments below. Let us know how you feel about this and questions you have. We'd love to hear. Anyway, take care, everyone. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us on our podcast, don't forget to subscribe either. We'd love to see you every week. And have a great spring. See you soon.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.